I look up to see this woman, let's call her Flight Karen, standing in the aisle, her face already an alarming shade of red. Behind her is a man, I'm guessing her husband, and a teenage girl who looks like she wants to disappear into her hoodie. Flight Karen is glaring at me as if I've personally offended her entire ancestry. You're in our seat, she declares. Now, I know for a fact that I'm not. I double-checked my boarding pass because I'm paranoid like that, so I just blink at her and say, no, I'm pretty sure this is my seat. She huffs, rolls her eyes, and says, well, you need to move. We're supposed to sit together as a family. I glance at the seats next to me. There's a grandmotherly type by the window, and a businesswoman in the middle. Neither of them looks thrilled about this conversation happening over their heads. I'm sorry, I say, trying to be polite, but this is the seat I paid for. Maybe you could ask at the counter if they can. Listen here, young man. Flight Karen cuts me off, her voice rising. We are a family. We need to sit together. You're young. You can sit anywhere. Now move. By this point, people are starting to stare. The husband is puffing up his chest like he's about to throw down in the middle of the plane, and the daughter looks like she's trying to become one with the overhead compartment. I'm not confrontational by nature, but something in me snaps. Maybe it's the 20-hour flight ahead of me, or maybe it's just the audacity of this woman. Either way, I find myself saying, no, I paid for this seat and I'm not moving. And that, folks, is when all hell broke loose. But before I go on, I gotta ask, am I the asshole for not giving up my seat? Should I have just moved to keep the peace, or was I right to stand my ground? Edit, holy crap, this blew up. I'll post an update with what happened next. Thanks for all the comments and awards. Update, the flight from hell, Karen's meltdown and the great seat showdown. Holy guacamole, Reddit. I didn't expect my post to blow up like this. Thanks for all the NTA judgments and the awards. Since so many of you asked for an update, here's what happened after Flight Karen decided to go nuclear over a seat assignment. So, there I was, standing my ground, well, sitting my ground, while Karen's face was turning a shade of red that would make a tomato jealous. Her husband, let's call him Karen's backup dancer, starts puffing up his chest like a deflated balloon trying to be intimidating. Karen, realizing I wasn't budging, cranks the volume up to 11. Do you know who I am? She screeches. Spoiler alert, I didn't, and I'm pretty sure nobody else did either. Now, let me paint you a picture of our cast of characters. First, we have Flight Karen herself, early 40s, and wearing enough jewelry to set off every metal detector in a 5-mile radius. Next to her was Karen's backup dancer, her husband, balding, with a polo shirt stretched tight over a beer belly, looking like he was one temper tantrum away from a heart attack. Trailing behind them was their daughter, a teenager with her hoodie pulled so far over her face, I'm surprised she could breathe, radiating enough embarrassment to power a small city. Our heroic flight attendant, who I'll call Saint Patience, was a woman in her early 30s with perfectly coiffed hair and a smile that somehow stayed in place even as chaos unfolded. In the window seat next to me sat Nana No Nonsense, a lady in her late 70s, armed with knitting needles and a take-no-crap attitude. Between us was a businesswoman in her early 50s, clutching her laptop bag like it was the nuclear football. And then there was me, just a guy who wanted to sleep through a long flight and instead got front-row seats to the Karen show. So, Karen's screaming about her apparent celebrity status that none of us were aware of. The entire plane has gone quiet, except for a baby a few rows back who started crying. Can't blame the little guy, I felt like crying too. Saint Patience approaches, her smile never wavering. Ma'am, she says in a voice so calm you'd think she was asking if we wanted chicken or fish. I understand you're upset, but this gentleman has been assigned this seat. We can't force other passengers to move. Karen's eye starts twitching. I swear I could see a vein pulsing in her forehead. Do you have any idea how much we paid for these tickets? She hisses. We are gold members. Saint Patience, still cool as a cucumber, replies, I appreciate your loyalty to our airline, ma'am. However, seat assignments are final, unless there's an aircraft change or overbooking situation. Neither of which is the case here. Karen's backup dancer decides it's his time to shine. He puffs up his chest, looking like an angry rooster in a polo shirt. He leans in, jabbing his finger towards me. Listen here, you little punk. But before he can finish his tough guy routine, Nana No Nonsense springs into action. Without missing a stitch in her knitting, seriously, her needles never stopped clicking. She fixes Karen's husband with a stare that could freeze lava. Young man, she says, her voice sharp enough to cut diamonds. If you don't back away right now, I'll show you what these knitting needles can do besides make sweaters. The whole plane goes so quiet you could hear a peanut drop. Even the baby stopped crying. Karen's mouth is hanging open like she's auditioning for a fish impression. Her husband takes a step back, nearly tripping over his own feet. Nana No Nonsense just sits there, knitting needles clicking away, with a look that says she's dealt with bigger bullies at the bingo hall. That's when Saint Patience, bless her heart, decides it's time to lay down the law. Her smile fades just a little, replaced by a look of steely determination. Sir, ma'am, she says, her voice firm but professional, if you can't calm down and take your assigned seats, we'll have to ask you to leave the aircraft. Karen's jaw drops even further. I'm worried she might unhinge it completely. You can't do that, she shrieks. Do you know how much these tickets cost? We'll sue. I'll have your job. Saint Patience doesn't even flinch. Ma'am, as I've explained, your seat assignments are clearly marked on your boarding passes. If you continue to disrupt the flight and threaten other passengers, we are within our rights to remove you from the aircraft. Karen explodes again, going on a rant about customer service that would make a Yelp reviewer blush. She's throwing around words like lawsuit and viral social media campaign, like they're confetti at a parade. Meanwhile, Karen's backup dancer is turning an alarming shade of purple. He looks like he's about to pop a blood vessel. The daughter, if possible, has shrunk even further into her hoodie. I'm pretty sure if she could have opened the emergency exit and flung herself out at that moment, she would have. Saint Patience, realizing this situation is escalating faster than a rocket launch, calls for backup. Suddenly, it's like the Avengers of airline staff have assembled. 3 more flight attendants materialize, and even the co-pilot steps out of the cockpit to see what all the fuss is about. The co-pilot, a tall guy with salt and pepper hair and the kind of authoritative voice you'd want announcing your flight isn't going to crash, addresses Karen and her husband. Folks, I'm going to need you to calm down and take your assigned seats, or we'll have to escort you off the plane. We can't take off with this kind of disturbance. Karen somehow finds a way to crank the volume even higher. This is discrimination, she wails. We paid for seats together. It's not our fault your incompetent staff can't do their jobs. The co-pilot's expression doesn't change, but his voice gets even firmer. Ma'am, sir, this is your final warning. Take your assigned seats or leave the aircraft. Those are your only options. Karen's backup dancer, seeming to finally realize they're fighting a losing battle, tries to pull Karen away. Honey, maybe we should just… But Karen's not having it. She shakes off her husband's hand and goes for her grand finale. We'll never fly with this airline again, she shrieks, loud enough to wake the dead. I'm going to tell everyone about this. You'll be sorry. The co-pilot just nods to the flight attendants. Please escort these passengers off the aircraft. What follows is a scene straight out of a bad reality TV show. Karen has to be physically guided down the aisle, screaming about her rights the whole way. Her husband follows, alternating between looking furious and mortified. The daughter trails behind, and I swear I could see the relief washing over her face as they finally exited the plane. As they're leaving, Karen's still shrieking threats and insults. I'm pretty sure I heard a collective sigh of relief from the entire plane, followed by a smattering of applause. Here's the kicker. As the situation calms down, Saint Patience approaches me. Sir, on behalf of the airline, we'd like to apologize for the disturbance. As a gesture of goodwill, we'd like to upgrade you to business class for this flight. I must have looked like a kid on Christmas morning. I gather my things, still in a bit of a daze, and follow her to my new seat in business class. Let me tell you, Reddit, it was like entering a whole new world. The seat was so wide and comfortable that I felt like I was sitting on a cloud, and the legroom. I could have done a full yoga routine if I wanted to. The real MVPs of this whole ordeal were Saint Patience for handling the situation with more grace than I could ever muster, and Nana No Nonsense for being an unexpected badass and showing that you should never underestimate a grandma with knitting needles. The co-pilot deserves a shout out too, for stepping in and laying down the law. And let's not forget all the other passengers who kept their cool during this circus. The flight itself was uneventful after that, thank goodness. I enjoyed every minute of my unexpected luxury, binge-watching movies and enjoying food that actually tasted like food. As we touched down in Sydney, I couldn't help but chuckle at the absurdity of it all. So there you have it, Reddit. The full, unabridged story of how Airport Karen's meltdown led to my first experience in business class. If there's a moral to this story, I guess it's this: treat people with respect, don't try to bully your way into getting what you want, and always be nice to flight attendants. Oh, and maybe pack your own knitting needles, just in case. To answer some common questions, yes, the daughter looked like she wanted to crawl into a hole and die the entire time. I feel bad for her. No, I don't know what happened to them after they were escorted off. I like to imagine they're still wandering the airport, Karen asking to speak to every manager she sees. Yes, business class was amazing, and I'm now totally ruined for the economy. Time to start saving up for my next flight. And to the person who asked if Nana No Nonsense is single, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure she's out of all our leagues. In conclusion, the next time you're on a flight and you hear someone start to kick up a fuss, just be grateful you're not related to them. And maybe, just maybe, their entitled behavior will score you an upgrade. Here's hoping anyway. Now is the second story. I witnessed a breastfeeding drama in Central Park today. Hey Reddit, I need to share this wild experience I had in Central Park this afternoon. It's crazy how a beautiful day can turn into such a dramatic scene. So there I was, enjoying my lunch break on a park bench, soaking in the summer sun and people watching. It was one of those perfect New York days, not too hot, with a gentle breeze rustling through the trees. The park was bustling with the usual mix of joggers, tourists, and locals like me trying to escape the concrete jungle for a bit. That's when I noticed this young mom with a stroller. She caught my eye because she looked a bit frazzled, you know, like she was searching for something. Her baby started fussing, and I could see her checking her watch and looking around frantically. Now, I'm no expert on babies, but even I could tell this little one was working up to a full-blown meltdown. The mom, let's call her stroller mom, was trying to calm the baby down, but it was clear that this kid was hungry and wasn't going to wait. I watched as stroller mom's face went through a whole range of emotions. She seemed to be weighing her options, glancing around for a more private spot. But the park was packed, and there wasn't exactly a breastfeeding welcome sign anywhere in sight. Just as the baby's cries started to get louder, drawing some looks from nearby picnickers, stroller mom made a decision. She found a spot near a tree, not far from where I was sitting, and started to get settled. I could see she was trying to be discreet, fumbling with a light blanket to cover herself and the baby. She looked nervous, her eyes darting around to see if anyone was watching. Spoiler alert, some definitely were, but most people were just going about their day. Just as stroller mom got her baby latched and quieted down, that's when she appeared. The woman I can only describe as a walking, talking embodiment of the "can I speak to the manager" meme. Folks, I present to you, Central Park Karen. But before I get into the drama that unfolded, let me tell you, I never expected my Tuesday lunch break to turn into front row seats to a public showdown over breastfeeding. So there I was, watching this young mom, stroller mom, trying to discreetly feed her baby. She had just gotten settled, and the little one had finally stopped fussing. Peace restored, right? Wrong. Enter Central Park Karen. This woman came striding up like she owned the place. Designer sunglasses, a live laugh love tote bag, and an expression that screamed, "I'm about to ruin someone's day." At first, I thought she was just going to walk past, maybe give a disapproving look, but oh no, she had other plans. Karen stopped right in front of stroller mom and started tapping her foot. I couldn't hear what she was saying at first, but her body language was clear. She was not happy. I saw stroller mom look up, confusion written all over her face. Then Karen's voice rose, and let me tell you folks, it was like a foghorn in the middle of the park. "Excuse me," she shrieked. "What do you think you're doing?" Stroller mom blinked, clearly stunned. "I'm feeding my baby." Her voice was so quiet compared to Karen's that I could barely hear it. But Karen was just getting started. "This is a public park. There are children here. You can't just whip it out like that." By this point, people around us were starting to take notice. I saw a couple of joggers slow down, and a nearby family having a picnic was staring open-mouthed. Stroller mom tried to adjust her cover, looking absolutely mortified. "I'm sorry, he was hungry, and I couldn't find a private." "I don't care," Karen cut her off. "You're ruining everyone's day with this nasty scene. Think of the children." I glanced around. The only children I could see looked more interested in their ice creams than anything else. But Karen was on a roll. "This is disgusting. You should be ashamed of yourself. I'm going to report you for public indecency." At this point, stroller mom looked like she was about to cry. Her baby, disturbed by all the yelling, started to fuss again. She tried to calm the baby while simultaneously attempting to cover up more, but Karen wasn't backing down. I was frozen in my spot, a half-eaten sandwich forgotten in my hand. Part of me wanted to step in, but I was honestly too shocked to move. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion. But then, something amazing started to happen. People around us began to react. A woman walking her dog called out, "Leave her alone. She's feeding her baby," for crying out loud. An older gentleman on a nearby bench chimed in, "Young lady, you're the only one causing a scene here." Karen whirled around, her face turning an impressive shade of red. "Mind your own business," she snapped. "This is a public nuisance." More and more people were stopping now, forming a loose circle around the scene. The mood was shifting, and Karen was quickly finding herself outnumbered. But if you think this is where Karen backed down, you'd be wrong. Oh no, she decided to double down in the most Karen way possible. So there we were, watching this ridiculous scene unfold. Karen, realizing she wasn't getting the support she expected, decided to play her trump card. She whipped out her phone and started dialing. "That's it," she announced to the growing crowd. "I'm calling the police. This woman is exposing herself in public." I kid you not, folks. She actually called 911 over a breastfeeding mom. The collective eye roll from the crowd was almost audible. Stroller mom, bless her heart, looked like she wanted the ground to open up and swallow her whole. Her baby was still fussing, and she was trying to comfort the little one while also dealing with this banshee of a woman. But here's where it gets good. Just as Karen started yapping into her phone about public indecency and think of the children, this guy stepped forward from the crowd. Let's call him Park Hero. Park Hero was this tall dude, probably in his 30s, wearing a "This is what a feminist looks like" t-shirt. He walked right up to Karen, positioning himself between her and stroller mom. "Ma'am," he said, his voice calm but firm, "you need to stop this right now." Karen, still on the phone, tried to wave him off. "Stay out of this. I'm reporting a crime." Park Hero wasn't having it. He raised his voice, not shouting, but loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. "The only crime being committed here is harassment. This woman is feeding her child, which is her legal right. You're the one disturbing the peace." Then he turned to the crowd. "Can we all agree that this mother has done nothing wrong?" The response was immediate. People started nodding, voicing their agreement. Someone even started a slow clap. Karen's face was a picture. She looked around, suddenly realizing that she was the one everyone was staring at, and not in a good way. Her phone call was forgotten. She sputtered, trying to find words. But it's indecent." Park Hero shook his head. "No ma'am, what's indecent is harassing a mother for taking care of her child. Now I suggest you hang up that phone and walk away before you embarrass yourself further." The crowd murmured in agreement. I saw a few people with their phones out, probably recording the whole thing. Karen was quickly becoming the star of a viral video she never wanted to be in. For a moment, it looked like Karen might try to argue more, but then she glanced around, seeing nothing but disapproving faces. Even the kids she had been so concerned about protecting were looking at her like she was the weird one. And just like that, the fight went out of her. Without another word, she shoved shoved her phone in her bag and stormed off, her face as red as a tomato. As she retreated, a spontaneous cheer erupted from the crowd. Park Hero turned to Stroller Mom, who was looking up at him with a mixture of gratitude and residual shock. As Karen stomped away, the tension in the air immediately dissipated. It was like everyone collectively exhaled. Park Hero knelt down next to Stroller Mom, speaking to her softly. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but I saw her nod and give a watery smile. The crowd started to disperse, but not before several people approached Stroller Mom to offer words of support. One older lady even came up with a bottle of water and some tissues, which Stroller Mom accepted gratefully. I finally found my legs and walked over. Up close, I could see that Stroller Mom's eyes were red, but she had this look of bewildered relief on her face. Are you okay? I asked, feeling a bit guilty for not stepping in earlier. She nodded, bouncing her now calm baby gently. I think so. I never expected anything like that to happen. Park Hero, who was still standing nearby, shook his head. Nobody expects to be harassed for feeding their child. I'm just glad everyone stood up to her. A woman who had been jogging by and stopped for the commotion chimed in. Honey, you have every right to feed your baby wherever and whenever you need to. Don't let anyone tell you differently. There were murmurs of agreement from the small group still gathered around. Stroller Mom's eyes welled up again, but this time she was smiling. Thank you, she said, looking around at all of us. Really, thank you all so much. As the last of the onlookers drifted away, I heard Stroller Mom ask Park Hero, how can I ever repay you? He just smiled and shook his head. Just pay it forward. Stand up for someone else when they need it. And with that, he gave a little wave and walked off, disappearing into the park like some kind of everyday superhero. I stuck around for a few more minutes, chatting with Stroller Mom. Her name was Vivi, and this was her first time out alone with the baby since he was born. Some first outing, huh? She laughed, looking much more relaxed now. It was a stark reminder that while there are indeed Karens out there, there are also plenty of good people ready to stand up for what's right. And sometimes it just takes one person to start it. So, Reddit, that's my crazy Central Park story. Next time you see a mom feeding her baby in public, maybe give her a smile. You never know, you might just be making her day. Oh, and if you see a guy in a "this is what a feminist looks like" t-shirt around the park, give him a high five from me.